Delving here into rather complex work. The main book that was used by Dan Brown for his research was The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, which caused a sensation when it was published 26 years ago. And that arose out of Henry Lincoln's holiday in France, where he read a book called Le Trésor Maudit by Gérard de Sède. And within that book was the mystery of the virtual millionaire status of an obscure parish priest called Béranger-Saunière in the chateau. But unfortunately, Henry fell into the hands of Gérard de Sède and his two colleagues, Philippe de Chérisey and Pierre Plantard. Now, Plantard was a convicted conman who had founded a society in 1956 called the Priory of Sun. Plantard was also a neo-fascist who had published a so-called resistance magazine on top quality paper in Paris during the war when paper was in very short supply. In actual fact, he was a Nazi sympathizer who published his work with the full cooperation of the Gestapo. De Sède, Plantard and de Chérisey had confected a wonderful fiction. They used the very real mystery of the millionaire status of Béranger-Saunière as a hook to hang their hat on. And Philippe de Chérisey, who was extremely knowledgeable about European esoteric history, confected a fable, a fantasy, about descendants from Jesus still being extant in Europe today, out of a long-standing esoteric tradition which was much wider and much broader than that. And they pinned the root of this family on the Merovingians, which was factually utterly wrong. Now, there are a group of families within Europe, known as Rex Deus, or simply as the families, who do claim descent not merely from Jesus, but from the 24 high priests of the temple, who had deserted the temple after it had been desecrated by a Greek king, and who had settled at a place called Qumran and formed an order known as the Essenes. This was the order wherein Jesus grew up, where he received most of his training, and it is descendants of the 24 priestly families of the Essene dispensation who are known as Rex Deus. This was the reality that lay behind de Chérisey's fiction. And the key link in the early transmission into Europe were not the Merovingians, but the people who usurped them, the Carolingians. Or 150 years before any of this became published, I found histories written of the Carolingian Empire, which state quite clearly that it was an established fact, and it's well documented, that Charlemagne claimed descent from the House of David.
Right.
So, in that sense, both the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail and the Da Vinci Code were in error in pinning it to the Merovingians. The Carolingians were the key, and it was during the Carolingian Empire that Charlemagne was in charge that he placed other members of the family in charge of large swathes of the country he was ruling. Who else could he try? Who could he trust better?
Yeah.
And it's their descendants who are the present-day members of the family. And yes, there are countless people descended from Jesus who are still alive.
Yes.
I know quite a few of them who, knowing that they are that, say, well, so what? 85% of any audience I address are probably have some blood connection with the Jesus family. Does it matter? Frankly, no. What matters is what sort of people they are today. But the Holy Blood and Holy Grail fantasy, which Agent and Lincoln bought wholesale from de Sède, de Chérisey, and Plantard, that was written purely to extol the ego of Pierre Plantard, who was an egomaniac writ large.
Wasn't he trying to claim ascendancy to some kind of throne?
It is suggested that that is the case, and it may well have been, but it certainly was a matter of conflating his own self-importance, which was pretty enormous to start with. He was a most unpleasant man. De Chérisey was a dissolute and rather drunken aristocrat. But the interesting thing about this whole handover of this fable from the so-called Priory of Sion members, de Chérisey, Plantard, and de Sède to Henry Lincoln, was when Henry...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.